Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thought we maybe could talk a little bit about a possible Lamar Jackson contract offer, just because I thought it might be a little bit interesting. I thought this might work a little bit better as a video than the kind of podcast format that we usually do, only because I know the numbers can kind of get confusing. Um, so I don't know if this is necessarily even hold up in the NFL. The NFL has some strange rules sometimes about franchise tag offers and everything else, but Lamar Jackson's still sitting out there. My first thought was a team was going to put together an offer sheet that just had such a high salary cap number in the first year that the Ravens couldn't match it. Obviously, that's not going to happen. The teams that could have done that, with the exception of the Colts, have pretty much just gone out there and spent too much money to be able to do that. So I was kind of trying to come up with a different type of way that maybe you could make an offer that the Baltimore Ravens couldn't match. Now, you have to realize there's a couple of things. The Ravens don't have to, if you want to do a contract, for example, that had a no franchise tag provision, the Ravens don't have to match that. Basically, the league has tried to come up with ways to prevent you from, voiding out a deal to where it's just a 1 year contract, and then the Ravens would not be able to apply the franchise tag to him again and essentially allow him to become a free agent in 2024. So they have that kind of rule in place. They have different rules in terms of being able to renegotiate a contract that you sign. You can't reduce the salary until I think it's the end of the next regular season. I think it's the rule that's in place. And you can't poison pill a contract, but the way the NFL defines a poison pill is, at least my understanding of it, is they define the poison pill as terms in a contract that only impact one team, not both. In other words, it would be if the Jets got involved with Lamar Jackson and they had a clause in there that said every time that he plays a game in Baltimore, he earns a $8 million roster bonus. Obviously, the Jets don't play in Baltimore, so the Jets wouldn't really have to honor that type of clause. So that wouldn't be allowed. They wouldn't allow that to kind of stand either. They don't allow you to kind of make up incentives that would only impact the team that he signs with. So what I wanted to come up with was something that I think is within the rules. And if it's not, hey, it's a fun discussion anyway. That would effectively be a 1 year contract where you would kind of have a wink, wink, nod, nod agreement with Jackson that you're going to redo this deal later on. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And obviously, there's always some concern with that because we're going to craft an offer here that does allow him to become a free agent after this season. And this is the way that I maybe would try to fool around with something like this. So let's look at the contract offer here. Let's look at the salary cap breakdown and the bonuses and the cash flows on here. And there's some crazy stuff here. You don't have to get too wrapped up in this total number of $355 million for 6 years. So let's just walk through it here. So first year, we're going to have a $10 million paragraph 5 salary, $40 million signing bonus. That's going to give you a salary cap charge of $18 million. Pretty much any team in the league is going to be able to handle that. So any team could do it. That includes a team like the Jets. If the Aaron Rodgers thing kind of doesn't work out, this comes out to kind of that same amount of money. Cash flow in the first year would be $50 million. Why did I choose that number? It was an easy round number. It would basically put someone right at the top of the market if you did that. And also from the Ravens' perspective, I think the fact that they didn't use the exclusive tag on him in some ways could be looked at as insulting. I think if you were in Jackson's shoes. So at the very least, this gets that salary number for the year over even what the exclusive tag probably would have been had the Ravens put that on him. So it puts a little bit pressure on the Ravens just in the sense that the cash is going to go up from 32 to 50, even though that salary cap charge is going to drop down from 32 million, I think is what it's at right now, 32 and change to 18. So this is where I think things would have to get interesting. So in 2024, you can see I have a minimum paragraph 5. We have our bonus proration. We have an option bonus I threw in there, 48,875. Cash flow 50 million. Okay, that certainly looks like something that the Ravens could match. That's a 18.9 salary cap charge. Our year 3, this is where I think you do something kind of creative to try to get them to release him. And the release would happen in 2024, as we'll get to in just a second here. In 2025, we're going to have a minimum paragraph 5 salary, signing bonus proration of $8 million. That's there. We have that option bonus proration of 9.8. And then we've got a roster bonus that is worth $250 million. You can make any number you want there. I don't think the NFL has any kind of rules in place that limit the amount of money that you can put in the future years. There's rules that they have on a 50% down. That would be a contract going from 23 to 24. And if you had that in an option year, I think that would actually count as a renegotiation. So it would be 24 to 25 as well. So you dump that into 25, and I don't think that triggers anything by having it there. So we have a salary cap charge of $269 million, cash flows that year at $251 million, and then we've just got some minimum salaries here just to fill out the rest of the contract. They're all void years. So we take a look at our annual value by year. If he's on the roster for 1 year, annual value is $50 million a year. The 2-year is also $50 million a year. If he happened to make it to that year 3, the APY would jump up to $117.1 million, which is absolutely insane, right? So what do we do here? We look at the dead money that exists, and you can see some of these figures here. And you know what? I'll get to that in a minute. Let's break down the way that the contract itself works. What's our guarantee? So our full guarantee on this deal is $50 million. The guarantee is the first year of the contract. What do we have injury guaranteed? 255.29. So, you know, that basically gets you to give him protection on maybe what he feels he would want to earn on an actual 5-year contract that would be worth $250 million. So it's not a real guarantee. It's injury protection because he's also taking part in this poison pill scam of sorts to get out of Baltimore, to where, you know, he's accepting this deal that's going to pay him $50 million this year, but he's still going to have a risk of getting hurt, right? Because we're going to have a possibility of cutting him in the future, because the team's got to have some outs in this too. So you've got this injury protection on there. Obviously, the team is going to take a big risk by taking on that injury protection that's in that contract. You know, but that's one of the things you can do with this. You know, you can protect yourself a little bit with insurance. And again, your side agreement with this is going to be, we're going to modify this deal the minute the 2023 regular season is over. So what do we have here? A 2023 paragraph 5 salary is fully guaranteed. 2024 to 2028 is guaranteed for injury, and $150 million of this roster bonus here is guaranteed for injury. This is where we have now the stuff that maybe would make a team say, okay, I can't match this. So we have our 2024 option bonus is going to be due on the 3rd day of the league year. That's this right here, $49 million. We've got the 2025 roster bonus becomes fully guaranteed if on the roster on the 3rd day of the 2024 league year. So basically that means if you are going to opt into this year by picking up this bonus, you are now on the hook for this $250 million in guaranteed money. 2026 through 2028 league years void, 5th day of the 2026 waiver period. Why do we have a void in there? There's a couple different ways you can do it, but the main reason for that void is to just ensure that this is indeed a 3-year contract. And where we've got this crazy salary cap number, obviously no team is going to be able to take that on. Even if they prorated this thing out over those void years, you would have ridiculous amounts of dead money that would hit the cap. The franchise tag number at that point would be huge because it'd be 120% of whatever his salary cap charge is that year. So even if this was prorated out in some way, shape, or form, and I'm going to try to block them from doing that, you know, you'd be looking at a franchise tag value of 60, 69, 75 million. So, you know, 20% more of that. So, you know, that's a massive franchise tag total if they were to franchise tag him at that point. Other terms of the deal, no trade clause. So they're not going to be able to opt into stuff and just trade him away. No automatic salary conversions. So that's where I went to this, that they just can't take this $250 million bonus and just say, okay, we are going to convert it to a signing bonus. We're not going to have any kind of situation where they can come in and turn some part of that contract there, that once this roster bonus is guaranteed, that it triggers it to, you know, to void. And I have a wrong date on this. The option should have been 5th day of the league year. And that's just because of this provision. Sorry about that. You know, because once the roster bonus becomes guaranteed and you picked up that option, I got these dates all wrong here. This is supposed to be the 3rd day. This one's supposed to be the 5th day. There we go. That prevents it from prorating once the option's picked up. At least it should, I think. I think that's how that works. So you can kind of do any days you want for this stuff to make that happen, but I think that's how it works. In the event that someone actually did pick up the option, you would also have a no offset provision in the salary, meaning if you cut him with the assumption that, well, someone else is going to give him a giant contract, you don't get an offset on this $250 million. So that's the way that I would structure this deal. So what happens on this contract is kind of the following. Because of the guarantee schedule and because of the way we have this contract structured, if we cut him, obviously you're not going to cut him in 2023. That's silly for me to even put there. If you cut him in 2024, all right, a regular cut, and I have the years wrong on that. Let's fix that real quick. You'd have $32 million that you had to account for on the cap. It's a lot, but maybe it's somewhat reasonable that you could consider, doing a regular cut at that point, even if you are the Baltimore Ravens. Your other possibility is a June 1 release, and that's probably what you would actually end up doing if you did match this offer, that you would get $8 million dead. You'd carry him at 18.9. You'd have $8 million dead, and you'd defer $24 million of the dead money to the year after 2024, so into 2025. So let's just say that Lamar Jackson they renege on their promise that they're going to renegotiate the deal. You can still release him as a post-June 1 release in 2024. And you would only carry him at 18.9, and then that would drop to 8, and then you'd have 24 million in 2025. So, again, it's a lot to pay for a guy for 1 year, but there's at least an out for you if you kind of went into that situation. In 2025, he's uncuttable, right? It'd be $313 million on a regular cut, $267 on a June 1. You'd defer 45 of that. And then even if you picked all that up, you'd still have $45 million in dead money left when the contract voids. And since we're doing a February void, there's no June 1 option that's in there. There's no way to spread that out. You would just get stuck at this $45 million. So realistically, what we're looking at here is a 1-year contract. Let's highlight this all in green. That this is the only part of the contract that's actually valid. Because what's going to happen is unless you come to terms on a new deal with him, you are going to have to cut him in 2024. You're either going to have to cut him as a June 1, or you're going to have to cut him as a regular cut. And you can change these dates, on these types of different guarantees on the roster bonuses if you really wanted to force the hand. I just kind of would assume that if you wanted to protect yourself, you might want that June 1 option in there. Might that be something that Baltimore would match and do the 1 year $50 million for Lamar Jackson? I mean, anything is possible. But here would be the kicker, for them. If the Ravens match this deal, instead of getting 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson, they'd get nothing for him in the future. Because what we're doing here is we're terminating the contract. We're actually causing the contract to be released. We're not putting in a void. We're not creating a scenario where they can franchise tag him again in 2024. We are forcing a release by this guarantee mechanism that would hit in 2025. So once he's released, because we're trying to avoid this payment or, $350 million of 117 APY, we're cutting this all off. All this part of the contract is gone. And we're left with either our 32 dead or our 8 million dead, whichever way we want to handle that for ourselves. And the Ravens wouldn't even be eligible for a compensatory pick because he's been released. So the Ravens option would be, okay, I'm going to let somebody else take him for the $50 million this year. I'm going to take my 2 first-round picks, and I'm going to say thank you for, the years that you were with us, or I'm going to match this offer, have an unhappy player on my roster for 1 year, at almost $20 million more than I have budgeted for him right now. I'm going to have to cut him in 2024, and I'm not going to be able to get a compensatory draft pick even for him, let alone 2 first-round picks. So I think by using something like this, you give yourself that possibility at least to have something that the Ravens won't match. And you know that this contract pretty much on all sides is not going to be honored. I mean, you can have your own agreement that you kind of think that you have in place, ahead of time. As soon as the regular season ends, you're allowed to modify the deal. The whole point of it is I think you're not allowed to modify the contract so the salary cap charge in the first year falls. They don't want you to create a scenario where, let's say you did something where it was an $80 million cap charge in year one. That's something that the Baltimore Ravens couldn't match. And then the minute that you sign him and, the Ravens don't match the offer, you go in there and you're like, okay, well, now I'm just going to convert all that money to a bonus and his salary cap charge will be $15 million. Well, that's not fair because you didn't give the Ravens a chance to match the same contract that you really intended to give him. So I think something like this might cover all bases. If not, yeah, it made for the fun couple of minutes, I think, thinking this out and putting this possibility together. But I think this might be a creative way for one of these teams that doesn't have a ton of cap room to swoop in kind of at the last minute unexpectedly and make something that is going to kind of put the Ravens in a pretty bad spot when it comes to making a decision as to matching an offer. Because right now, I think they would match any kind of offer that's out there, and that's one of the reasons why teams aren't doing it. So I think this would be that possibility. Then, when February comes around, January comes around, you're going to go in there and you're going to renegotiate this deal to be a normal contract. You can leave that option bonus in place. This thing will disappear. You can do whatever you want. You can do $40 million a year, as roster bonuses in there. That gets you to 265 over, what's that, 6 years effective total. That's a 45. So he would need more than that. Something like this. I'm just running the numbers as I go through it. That gets you to 50. So if you did something like that, obviously those salary cap charges are gigantic, for doing that kind of stuff. But remember, the salary cap is going to go up, and there's different ways that you can make these numbers obviously work. You can use more void years with multiple options and different kinds of bonus prorations. But that's all stuff that would kind of be discussed, and you'd be creating something that basically prohibits a franchise tag in 2024 without putting a no tag provision in there that they don't have to match. And you're going to be the team that stepped up to the plate, and you're going to get the ability to do that long-term deal with them. And if you don't, if things really did go south again, because of the structure of this deal, we've given ourselves the ability to June 1 the following year, carry him during free agency at 18.9. That'll drop down to $8 million in dead money, and then it'll be 24 million. I'm sorry, in 2025. So I mean, there is an out for you in that sense. To take your 1 year gamble, and you're going to get the best effort because obviously you're the club that he wants to be with, you're the club that he signed with, and even if in the back of his mind it's, well, maybe I could still go to free agency, even though what I said, you're going to get the best effort from him because for him to maximize that value, he needs to have a really great season. But I think this is just kind of a unique way. So. That's it from me on this one. So hopefully I will actually do a podcast this week. But for now, we'll have this little video. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you all again soon.